Alright, so I'm in Devon, which is a beautiful part of southwest England, and I'm on my way to Tintagel, which is where they believe King Arthur was born, in the Tintagel Castle, which is in Cornwall, the very southwest tip of England. Now I stopped here because there are some interesting Neolithic sites on the way, and right now I'm looking for something called Spinster's Rock. It dates back to 2500 to 3500 BC. So we've got a 4,000 to 5,000 year old Neolithic site. It's a burial chamber. Now there's legend and myth around this that the wool spinners from around here, hence the name Spinster's Rock, were bored and had some spare time on their hands. So they just erected 3 massive rocks. It's about 9 foot tall and weighs a total of 16 tons. So those were some very strong wool spinners. The other myth is that an elderly man and his 3 sons put it up one morning. So you've got 3 rocks and then a top one, and all of them turned into that stone. So obviously myth, but it was a burial chamber, and it's thought to have been under a mound of some sort, and that either that mound has eroded or it has, almost tripped. Either that mound has eroded or they've taken it away to expose the rocks. Either way, I don't know. But what's really cool about these types of sites, which are kind of like Stonehenge, is that around that time they started erecting them towards the sky. So burial chambers traditionally prior to that were under the ground. And I might be wrong about this, but I read a while ago that around that time, around 4,000 to 5,000 years ago, they started building them towards the sky as a type of worship to the sun, or a sacrifice of some sort to the sun, because they believed that there was something blocking the sun for a very long time. Maybe some volcanic eruption that caused lots of ash to block out the sun, and the vegetation died. There was massive famine, so they started praising the sun by offering their dead to the sky. So let's go check this place out and hang out for a little bit. Hello. Are you the 3 wool spinners that put this thing up?
We are.
Strong.
We're the spinsters. The 3 spinsters.
The 3 spinsters? Yeah. Well, it's an honor to meet you. Alright, so that's about it for Spinster's Rock. I always like to kind of ground myself and earth myself in these sites, take my shoes off, take a little meditative nap, and I usually get into some sort of meditative state, but also kind of lucid dreaming. I've had a lot of lucid dreams at sites like this, mostly in the Highlands of Scotland, and I had a little dream there, and those 3 ladies that were just here, they got quiet, and I think they dozed off a little bit too. I looked over and they seemed to be taking a little nap. So it's interesting. We all kind of took this little meditative nap together. I wonder what they saw or what they thought of while they're in that state. But yeah, I just had this kind of imagination of what was going on here 4, 5, 6,000 years ago. And what's happened here since then. As you can see, this is basically just farmland. There's nothing around here. This is just somebody's property. It's nice and peaceful and quiet and beautiful. But time to hit the next site. I'm on my way to Cornwall to check into my hotel. I'm gonna do some sites around there. Now this area is riddled with burial chambers like this, Neolithic sites, stone circles, wells, just strange kind of monuments that just popped up from the earth that people worshipped and created myths around. And on the note of myths, if you look at a map, geographically, Devon and Cornwall, that far southwest tip of England, is Celtic heritage. It comes from Celtic heritage. And if you look at the map, that kind of crest from northern Spain, the Basque country, the Basque region, into the far western tips of France, and then you hit here Cornwall, Devon, and then of course up into Wales and Ireland and the Isle of Man, and then into Scotland, of course. It all comes from Celtic heritage, and it makes sense that the Celts basically traveled that crest. And they brought their language here. People still speak Cornish here, which is a Celtic language. Not particularly here in Devon, but just down the road in Cornwall. And they brought their myths and their legends and their culture here. And it's really hard to dig into because they didn't have a written language. So it's just open for interpretation, and I like that part of it. It leaves some myth and mystery to it, and you get these little tidbits, these little snippets of information about what was going on here and what the myths were all about, but you can't really formulate this solid fact around them, and I like that part about it. So we're going to get into a few spots here that have some very interesting stories behind them, very interesting myths, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. So this whole part of the trip is all about disengaging, disconnecting. So apart from filming and vlogging some stuff here, I don't have access to the internet. My phone has very little service, so I need to navigate with a good old-fashioned map, and I like that. I haven't been able to do that for a while. So a vacation for me, I'm not one of those people who can just go lay on a beach and get fed shrimp and cocktails and just lay around all day. I can't do that. I have to stay active. But you can find relaxation through activity, through physical activity too, mental relaxation. The body can keep moving and you can relax. For me, I come to Britain for grounding myself and kind of reconnecting spiritually when I feel, I suppose you could say, a little lost. Not like lost hope or anything like that, but just I need to reconnect with things that matter. I don't know if it's just because of my lineage. I have a lot of memories here from childhood, a lot of family here, but it just does something special for me. And lots of places I've been to are special, but not in such a personal sense. So the only thing I'm doing here is driving to Neolithic sites, exploring nature, and sharing some of that with you. So I hope you enjoy the things that I find here. This is the only part of Britain I've never been to, so I'm pretty excited to get on the road again tomorrow morning to check out Tintagel, King Arthur's castle, and a few other spots around there that just seem really interesting. There's stone circles, there's burial chambers, there's tours, all things that are 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years old. So I'm gonna go eat at the hotel and relax a little bit, and I'll see you in the morning. All right, so something Cornwall's really well known for are its pasties. So I just picked up a lamb one. I'm gonna go find a quiet spot and give it a taste. All right, so we got the Cornish pasty, or pasty, however you want to pronounce it. British people call it a pasty. And the way that it differs from other meat pies in Britain is the way that they crimp it. Now they crimp it this way because of its history. You see, the women from around here, the wives of the miners who were copper and tin miners, would crimp it on the side so there'd be a really thick crust that they could hold on to with their dirty hands, essentially. That way they wouldn't get the copper and the tin in their digestive tract and get sick or poison themselves somehow. So they'd hold on to the crimped crust on the side and then throw the crust away. Now, sounds like a waste, but this thing itself is, I'm gonna say, close to 5 pounds. So I don't even know if I can eat all this. I'm definitely gonna save some of it, but let's give it a shot. Savory, hard, crumbly, crusty dough on the outside. Soft, moist lamb and leek on the inside with, looks like some potatoes and peas. There's definitely some seasoning in there, or herbs, rather herbs. Marjoram, tastes like maybe even a little bit of dill. Moist, tender lamb chunks. You get the crunch from the onions and the vegetables. You get the crunch from the crust on the outside. And just look at that dough on the inside there. That dough on the inside there is just nice and soft. It's just like a freshly baked bread on the inside. Oh wow, this is very good. You can hear those cows in the background. Relax, guys, this is lamb. It's not beef. So, this is definitely something that a worker would take to work. And I could see this holding them over for a whole day's work. You know, these guys are probably working in mines 10, 12, maybe 16 hours a day. So if they took a couple of these to have at lunch and then maybe later in the day, I'm sure they were fine until they got home, because this right here, it's heavy, it's very filling. I would say that this whole thing here is probably 800, 900 calories, if I had to estimate. Macro composition is going to be pretty high carb and fat. The protein's there, but honestly, it's not a terrible amount of lamb. And that lamb is tender, fatty, juicy. It's got that gamey lamb flavor that I really like. All right, so I'm about to go and get lost somewhere in the countryside here. I don't have a real plan. I'm just gonna go find a trail and see if I can find some other sites that I've been looking at online, and some waterfalls potentially. We'll see where it takes us. I'm not gonna use my maps. I'm just gonna hit a trail and walk an hour or two and see if I can turn around and not get too lost. All right, see you in a minute. So I saw a lot of people coming out of this pasture here. There's livestock roaming around, a lot of cow pies. But I saw a lot of people walking out of here with towels and shorts and no shoes. So I'm assuming there's a nice beach down there somewhere. And I'm gonna go find it and jump in. I don't have any swimming clothes, but I'll figure it out. As you can see, it's quite the trek down here, but it's usually means it's worth it. I'm not even halfway there yet, but I'm looking forward to getting into that water. It's only 65 here today, but walking around with a backpack full of stuff all day, work up a little bit of a sweat. This should be fun. This is perfect. Nice. Cold. Beautiful setting. Look at that. Well, that was definitely worth the hike. Very nice place. Walking around barefoot now. Feels great. So on to the next adventure. This is just a coastal trail that has some inlets into some wooded areas. So we're just gonna see what I can find. Hopefully this wind dries my shorts off. But you know, something I used to be very self-conscious of, figured it'd be a good time to talk about it, is taking my shirt off in public, especially when I was overweight. In fact, at one point in life, I was so self-conscious about my weight and my body that I wouldn't even take my shirt off in front of my own girlfriend at the time. Really bad state of mind and relationship with your body, obviously, as well as a really bad diet and lifestyle, but not the healthiest mindset to have when it comes to your own body, right? And I talked to a lot of guys about these things over the last several years, and I know a lot of guys struggle with these things kind of quietly. Now, on the note of being self-conscious, I developed what's called gynecomastia, this kind of glandular stuff under the chest fat or just under the nipple. And a lot of guys struggle with that, and I still have some lingering. And you know what? I've gotten down to like 9–8% body fat, and actually it just seems more apparent at that level of leanness. It never goes away. It's glandular, it's not fat, it's not muscle. So I'm actually getting surgery to have that removed in October. But if you're a dude that struggles with gynecomastia or just body image, I want you to know that you can improve it. There are procedures for gynecomastia, but first and foremost, gaining some muscle and losing body fat is the first way to go. Now, there's some drugs that help with it. You want to speak to your doctor about that. I'm not going to give those recommendations, but getting muscle and losing body fat will definitely help. So just know that if you stick to the basics, I mean a basic program with progressive overload, and you're consistent with it, you train when you feel tired, you stick to your nutrition when you don't feel like it, I'd say 90% of the time, you take those factors plus time, you will feel and look better. Pretty much guaranteed. There's no special formula, there's no special thing you need to be doing, no special supplement, no special program or diet. It's just mastering the basics and making them a part of your life. Just like you put your shoes on, you brush your teeth, you go to bed. It just has to be something that you do. So if you've been struggling to lose fat, get stronger, feel more confident in yourself, literally just stick to the basics. Strength training, muscle building workouts, going for walks, maybe some light cardio here and there, high protein, lower fat, lower carb, and you will succeed. Enjoy your favorite foods here and there without guilt. Literally here and there, you know, every couple weeks have a snack or a meal that you've been missing and get right back on track with the next meal. Not the next day, the next meal. Okay, so let's go find something else that we can explore here in Cornwall, England. I'm thinking we'll probably find some forest or waterfalls or something. I don't know. Oh, wow. By the way, look at this. Look at how they've made this fence. This is probably an old sheep pen. Those slates, how they're kind of zigzagged there. I love finding weird stuff like this. I mean, this fence could be 500, 800, 1,000 years old. Interesting. No idea how old this was. It said it was a mill. I think it said Crestwell Mill. But pretty cool. You got all the ivy and moss growing on the old slate. Beautiful. Some etchings here. WH. Maybe that's who made it. Maybe that's who lived here. Who knows? I love exploring like this though. There's another sign that doesn't tell us much. Very cool. Oh, ribbons. That means those ribbons indicate that there is a Clutie well. Oh shit. This is awesome. Okay, before I show you what I just saw. A Clutie well. Clutie, or Clutie, is a Scottish word for rag or a piece of cloth. So that's a holy well. But I just found something even more interesting, at least to me. And that is this. Look at that. Someone didn't just do that. These have been here for a long time. So that is a Celtic pagan carving. I read about it here, that they exist here. Pagan Celtic carving. So that's a tree and a maze. It symbolizes the cycles of life. And there's lots of ways you can interpret these. But I actually meditate on these symbols quite a bit. So cool. I have no idea how old these are. Could be 1,000, could be 5,000 years old. Okay, so the sign here says from early Bronze Age, 1800 to 1400 BC. Just amazing. About 4,000 years old, 3,500. Still got this old wood beam here as a support for the structure, the door. But onto the Clutie well. So these ribbons are kind of like you'll see in Buddhist sites, like prayers. So this was a very holy site for somebody, some types of people, a long time ago, and people come here and still tie their ribbons here, and probably some sort of a sacrifice or offering to worship whatever it was they wanted to worship. Now, I'm not seeing any water here, but I'm guessing since there's some sort of structure around here that this was at one point a running well. Let's see what's through this window. Not much. So if those carvings, they're literally right there, about 10 feet away, from the early Bronze Age, about 1800 BC, it's safe to say that whatever they used this for, this well, this ancient well, it meant something to them. A source of life, fresh water. They've got the stream there. Maybe it was a portal to another realm. Odds are they thought it was some sort of medicine to cure diseases, because people couldn't cure diseases very well back then. Maybe it was where they baptized people and did some sort of ritual. Maybe it's where people gathered. We don't really know. It's open to the imagination. But we do know that this was a holy, special place, probably for both the pagans and then the Christians. I'm gonna sit down here and relax for a little bit. It's nice and quiet. See if I can get into some sort of meditative state. So when I find places like this, particularly in Britain, I like to get quiet and try and make myself maximally present. Maybe get into a meditative state, or maybe just a little dream of some sort, and see what it brings me. And I wanted to tell you about what I saw yesterday at Spinster's Rock. So I showed up to the rock formation, the 4 stones, that the tale is that 3 wool spinners, females, just put it up because they were bored one morning 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. And those 3 ladies were there. And kind of jokingly I asked if they were the spinsters. And I spoke to them for a little bit, and they were very educated and well informed on the Neolithic sites around here. And as I was kind of dozing off in the grass, I could hear one of them say, "Let's all lay down and put our faces towards the ground." And they had their hands on their face like this. And she said, "Let's pretend we can see into the earth." And they got real quiet, and I think they fell into a meditative state. So I wondered like what they saw. But what I saw, this just could be imagination, or it could be a lucid dream, who knows? Astral projection, was an elder standing in front of those rocks, speaking to some peoples, and it was intense. People were sad and they were angry. And that being a burial chamber, it's very likely that that happened there, where they probably buried some of the leaders of the tribes, or the elders, or important people of power. And I could tell people were very angry but also sad, and they wanted revenge. That's just the dream I had, and it lasted 10 seconds maybe. Here, I'm sitting pondering what this meant to people, because this is essentially a labyrinth. And, you know, you can interpret it any way you want, but every path you take determines an outcome in life. And that's still true to us today. But we don't have the risks that people had 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. Their choices meant life or death often. For us, it's maybe you lose some money, maybe you die, but that's an extreme case, and we don't usually face those scenarios. It's also kind of the spiral of life, the path of life, that you never really truly know exactly where you're going and where it's going to take you. I can only imagine what paths people had to take and the decisions they had to make for their survival and their future. Really puts things into perspective. You see, back then, being strong really mattered. The weak did not survive. And if something was too hard, it didn't matter. I'm pretty sure that most people didn't just say, "That's too hard." It wasn't a common phrase you heard a few thousand years ago. And now today, you've got people saying that about just about everything. But imagine the grit and the drive and the will people had back then just to survive. That's a cool tree. Just to survive. You see, they had to farm, plow, they had no days off, they had no heating, oftentimes they didn't have fresh water. Disease, famine, ice age. And today, people are saying, it's too hard to start that side business. It's too hard to go to the gym. It's too hard being healthy. It's too hard to work on myself so that I can be of good influence to others and be happy and healthy. And it's all bullshit. I get it. Today's world is a lot different. We live in a faster paced world, and we have other priorities, such as money. And that's really important, to have and make money. Otherwise, you don't have a good quality of life typically. But you have to remember the very basics of life, the primal basics of strength and health and vitality, all still really matter. And if you feel like you're struggling with it, if you feel like it's too hard for you, just remember what your ancestors went through to get you here. That was hard. Not to mention that we're not here for very long. So if what you were doing 5 or 10 years ago is the same exact thing you're doing today, you've got some serious thinking to do and some serious action to take. Well, you know, so far today, I ate a full English breakfast with a bowl of cereal, a ton of calories. Then I had that massive, heavy Cornish pasty. But I've been walking since 10 o'clock this morning and it's about 6. So I've already gotten over 20K steps, I believe, for the day. And I am starving. So I'm headed to apparently a really nice waterfall. And then I'm gonna try and find something to eat because I'm starting to get a little hangry. I can feel my blood sugar dropping, and you don't want to know me when I'm hangry. All right, well, that just about wraps it up for today. I've done a lot of walking, seen the castle, gone on a couple different hikes, walked all the way up here to something that's called St. Nectan's Glen, and it has this beautiful setting at the top with a nice restaurant. Had to have my 3rd high-calorie meal of the day, so I'm off to my hotel. So I'm gonna head down there. I'm gonna walk down to the car, which is about another hour, relax tonight, and get into some more adventures tomorrow. I'm not sure what they'll be, but I'm sure I'm gonna find some Neolithic sites, and it's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to it.